Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Sean Courtney, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Officer at Connecting Up. Our webinar today, Digital Marketing Basics to Promote Your Fund My Community Project Online, will be presented by our very own digital marketing expert at Connecting Up, Ryan Jones. Don't forget, a recording of today's presentation and a copy of the slides will be sent to you all in the following days, so please look out in your inbox so you can review it at any time. That's all from me, so I'll now hand over to Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Shawnee Sean. And welcome everyone to today's very exciting webinar. I want to start quickly by talking about what our plan was for Wednesday. So we ran out on Wednesday and the recording will be available soon. But it covered all of the things that you can see on your screen. These are sort of the basics, and we won't be covering these things again today because the webinar recording will be available and you can go through it then. But if you have any specific questions about anything that you see on your screen right now, we will have an opportunity for you to answer those at the end. So the plan for today then is pretty simple. What we're going to look at is we're going to look at email newsletters, and we're particularly going to focus on MailChimp because it's a very affordable option for a lot of nonprofits. We're going to do measurement with Google Analytics, which hopefully you're already all using. And then we're going to take questions. So we're going to take questions throughout the webinar that are related to what we're talking about at the time. But if you have any questions about possible channels to promote your Fund My Community projects, anything that is digital marketing related that we're not covering today, we will cover those at the end and we can sort out your strategies and we can give you a hand with that, depending on how we go for time. So hopefully that sounds good. If you've got any questions through the webinar, just use that chat box and my good friend Sean will make sure that he reads them out and we'll go through them one by one. And I do encourage you to use this opportunity to ask as many questions as you can because this is a great opportunity to actually get a bit of feedback on what you're doing and a bit of advice. So let's start with email newsletters with MailChimp. Before we go into why I'm talking about MailChimp, what I want to talk about is why I want to talk about email. Because some of you are probably thinking, email, why would we want to use email? That's not very interesting at all. But you have to remember a few things about email. You know, first of all it's a very, very cost-effective promotional medium. I mean, some of the email marketing tools that we'll talk about today are free or they're very low cost. And so the cost per person that you speak to is very low. It's very easy to measure the response rates that we get from these emails. Whether it's how many people actually actioned them, how many people read them, those kind of things. So it's easy for us to understand if they're working or not. Email is a relatively easy medium for people to understand what they're supposed to do with it. Well, my computer's decided to jump ahead. But email is a very easy medium to understand what to do. You put a good call to action in your email and pretty much anybody can look at that email and go, okay, I need to click on this to do something. So there's no complicated social media response mechanisms, no SMS integration, things like that. It's just simple, which can be useful depending on which demographic you're trying to reach. It is direct medium. So it goes straight to the person who you're trying to reach's inbox. So it's easy to actually get good response rates. It can be automated, so you can automatically send emails to people when they subscribe to your list. You can automatically send emails to people when they meet certain criteria on your list, which can be helpful for running more long-term donor campaigns. Or in the case of Fund My Community, it might be that you run an automated email once a week as people add to your email list to promote the fact that your project is online and it's available to vote for. The other really critical thing here is it's more transparent compared to social media algorithms. So what I mean by that is when you put something up on Facebook, you've got an audience of, let's say, 1,000 people. You put a post up and you see that it only reached 100. Facebook have quite a complicated algorithm that runs in the background that decides who gets to see that email and who doesn't, and you can pay to get more people to see that. With email, the email goes to the person that you're sending it to. And if it doesn't reach that person, it's because their email address has changed, which is something that we want to know about and we want to react to. It's because you're getting marked as spam, and these tools usually give you a way of actually being able to react to that. So you can make sure that the emails aren't spammy before you send them out. And it helps you just make sure that those emails actually get delivered, as opposed to putting things up on social media and not really being sure whether they're going to reach or not. And I'm not saying here do email instead of social media. I'm just telling you that email still works very well for things like newsletters, calls for donations, event announcements, press releases, more, and it's very cost effective. So I would use email and social media in conjunction. So what we actually need to send these emails out to our audience is some kind of tool to do it. So if you've been using something like Outlook, then okay, that kind of works when you've got a small list, but you will need a more professional tool so that you can do things like make sure that you're spam compliant, make sure that your IP address doesn't get blocked, because if you're sending via Outlook and your IP address gets blocked, then none of your emails will go out. And its main thing is reporting as well. So these tools will all give you some form of reporting. There are lots of others that you can get that aren't on this list as well. But what I want to focus on today is MailChimp. So say good day to my good mate Freddie. Now, why I'm using MailChimp today, there's two main reasons. There's lots of very interesting ones on the screen right now, but the two critical ones to us here are MailChimp is easy to use and the pricing is very, very sharp because it starts from the price of free. Free is pretty good. Now, the free plan on MailChimp is for accounts with less than 2,000 subscribers. So as you grow your lists, yes, you'll need to start paying for it once you reach that 2,000 mark. But I find a lot of community organisations are quite happy sitting below that 1,000 mark, so they never have to pay for MailChimp. It works very well. If you do pay for it, you get some great additional features like marketing automation or A/B testing tools. So you can send an email out with 2 different subject lines, 2 different times of day, things like that. And MailChimp will send it to 2 small sample groups for your list, work out which one is the most effective one for you, and then use that data to send it to the rest of the list. In terms of the automation, we can automate onboarding emails or we can automate registration emails. One example, I worked with an organisation 2 weeks ago who had an ebook that they were offering through their website. And what they wanted to be able to do was when somebody signed up to download the ebook, that person would go onto a MailChimp list, and then that person would receive an email every 3 days for a month on a particular part of that ebook to provide them with a little bit of extra help about what the topic was, and to make sure that they could reach out if they had any additional help. For people on this webinar with Fund My Community, you can use that same approach to encourage people to continue to vote for your project, to encourage people to reach out to their friends and family and get them involved. But the other thing, we discussed this yesterday in the workshops we did actually, we can use those to promote a different aspect of your project. So you might have a list of 500 people, and those 500 people might all be interested in different things that you're doing as part of your project. So if you can send out a different message with every communication, it might be that only 25% of your database tunes into each email, but those 25% might be a different 25% depending on the message that you're sending through. So that's what we're aiming for here. Now, the other thing with MailChimp is that it is very well supported with a good API. API is just a fancy way of saying it connects to things. So you should be able to integrate it into other platforms or websites that you use. So if you use WordPress for your website, there's a module for WordPress so that you can put a nice big box on the home page. As soon as somebody goes to your home page, they sign up to your email list and you can start communicating with them. There's plugins for Drupal, there's plugins for Facebook, there's plugins for CRMs. If you use some form of CRM, there's lots of different options there. All right, so we don't have any questions just yet, so we'll move on to the basic concepts of MailChimp. So if you haven't done email marketing before, this might be new to you. If you have done email marketing before, then you probably want to skip this. But the basic concepts here are we have lists on MailChimp, and lists contain groups of lists contain subscribers, but they can also contain groups of subscribers. So I might have a group of subscribers who are parents, we might have a group of subscribers who are kids, we might have a group of subscribers that are grandparents, and we can allow them to actually choose which group they fit into when they sign up for our list. We can also create smart segments or smart groups, which I'll talk about in a minute, but they are based on certain criteria. So we could create one for people who subscribe to our list during April. If we know that we are potentially going to receive website traffic from Fund My Community because they have redeveloped the Fund My Community tool, and it does link to your website and social media now. So if we know that there's a potential that we might get website traffic from that tool, then we can put a nice big call to action on our homepage that says sign up to our email list. And when people sign up to that email list, we can start to track them in MailChimp, we can start to communicate to them asking them to vote for us. And at the end of Fund My Community, what we can do is we can create a smart group for people who signed up to the list during the Fund My Community period, because that's pretty much the people that we think came in from Fund My Community, and then we can send them a different message after that. So some of those people might be interested in donating to your project, some of those people might be interested in volunteering for it, or some of them may actually want to be clients of that project. And this was a big thing that came out of the initial Fund My Community project. What the Fund My Community team found was that a lot of organisations had out-of-date websites and they weren't in a position to capitalise on the traffic that they were getting. So there were a couple of instances of organisations where they would get a message on the Fund My Community website that said, hey, you know, we actually think this project's really good. We can help with it regardless of whether you get funded or not. So please get in touch with us and we would be happy to help. And so what we're really after here is we're really after vibrant projects. I mean, we could say that we're really after funding at any cost, but if we can get the projects happening and make an impact in the community, even if we don't get funded through Fund My Community, then that's a really good result for us. So we need to make sure we have a way of capitalizing on that. Now, campaigns. Campaigns, again, is a fancy way of saying email. So basically, campaigns are sent to your list of subscribers or the groups within. Now, MailChimp have pre-designed templates that you can use for these emails. And you can just grab one of these templates and you can change the colors, put your own images in, and away you go. You can have multiple templates in your account for different kinds of campaigns if you want, and then it's just point and click for somebody to create a new campaign. It's pretty easy. Then we get reports where we can actually analyze the performance of our emails. So we can see things like who read your email, the percentage of people who read your email, who clicked on the articles, and how many people actually read each article, where your opens were, those kind of things. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail afterwards. All right. So with the lists, it's pretty easy to set them up. You create a list. You'll need to give each list a name, give it something that makes sense not just to you but to others. You'll need to put default from details in. That just avoids you having to set it up individually for each campaign, but you can override it. When you put your default from settings in, my recommendation is to use something related to your organization so that people know that it came from you. So it might be that the default from details are your organization name, and maybe your organization has generic inquiries or info email address, and those would be your default from details. If you're not used to email marketing, you may not be aware that there's actually a number of spam laws around in different countries. MailChimp is an American-based company, so they actually adhere to the American Spam Act. And the American Spam Act is actually one of the most toughest spam compliance acts in the world. So when you create your lists, you need to put a permission reminder in there, which reminds people of how they got on your list or how they gave you permission to send them email. So people must have given you permission to send them email before you can start emailing them through MailChimp. You can't just grab a database of people and put it on MailChimp. And that might be as simple as you signed up on a form on our website. That's a pretty simple permission reminder. The other part of that is that you need to have a mailing address, and that is for that spam law compliance as well. So what will happen if you don't have those things? Well, first of all, they won't send your campaign if you don't have a mailing address. If you don't have the permission reminder, then if somebody gets your email and they go, I don't know how I got on this list, I'm angry, I don't like spam, they can actually report that campaign to MailChimp, and MailChimp will turn your account off. So it's important that we stay on the right side of that and we make sure that we do the right thing. Not just because we don't want our accounts blocked, but we don't want people in the community talking about how we are notorious spammers and people should stay away from us. We want to have a good reputation all around. And then there's some more advanced settings that you can set up. So things like Google Analytics and other more advanced things. Now, to actually get people into these lists, again, it's pretty easy. So if you have a spreadsheet or a Word file or something like that for a whole group of people, you can import them simply by uploading the file or copy and pasting the data into MailChimp. And then what MailChimp will do is it will go, okay, thanks for that. I think that this column of your spreadsheet is email addresses, this column is first names, this column is last names. I know what this column is. Can you just match them up? And so it'll give you the opportunity there to match them up. You can actually add whichever fields you want. So if you wanted to add a field about whether they are a parent or a grandparent or a child, perhaps, you can add that when you do that data import, and then you'll be able to segment them. You can basically segment the list by whichever criteria you enter into MailChimp. So it's pretty open in terms of what you can do. If you just want to add a single person, maybe you get a new staff member come on board, you just want to add one person, it's pretty easy. Again, there's just a simple button on the website so that you can just add one person. I certainly wouldn't want to be adding 2,000 people that way, but it's very easy to just add one person, just go in there, and or you can just edit somebody if somebody rings you up and says, hey, I've changed my email address. Now, if you're using some kind of integration to add your subscribers to MailChimp through your website or some form of CRM, instead of using a subscription form or an Excel file or something like that, you can absolutely do that. You won't get the details on this page or in this webinar because it varies depending on what tool you're using. But you can do that through the API key, So I said before that an API was just a fancy way of saying a connector, and an API key is just a fancy way of saying a password for that connector. So if you set up a MailChimp module on a WordPress site, for example, it will ask for an API key, and you can set that up through your settings. And that way you can automatically get these people added to your MailChimp list. There's no manual process of importing subscribers. In terms of your sign-up forms, you can customize the design so they look exactly like you want them to look like. You can have different sign-up forms for different lists. So if you have multiple programs targeted at different groups of people, you can customize them each one. You can get the links so that you can just send out a link or put a link on a flyer or something saying sign up to our email list at this URL. And you can do all of that there on that page. Now with the groups and segments, we use the groups to keep the lists on our account to a minimum, because what we want to do here is we want to make sure that each subscriber is only on one list on our account. MailChimp actually works by billing us per subscriber. So if that person is subscribed to 2 lists, they count as 2 subscribers. So if we have them on the one list and we use the groups, then we can get 2,000 people on our database, versus if we duplicated our list and we had the same 2 groups of 1,000 people, then we would have 2,000 people on our account and we wouldn't be able to use the free account anymore. Now with the segments, they're used to extract subscribers and send specific communications based off certain criteria. I talked about that before. Hopefully that makes sense, but please ask questions if you would like, and we can do all kinds of crazy things with that. With the groups, an example I've used before is when I've had people sign up, I ask them to select whether they are a volunteer, whether they're a donor, whether they're a participant, and from there I might send the entire list certain communications, but then I would have certain communications that I only want to send to the donors, I only want to send to the participants, and I only want to send to the volunteers. Now, with our subscriber forms, we can add these forms to our websites and to Facebook to try and increase the number of subscribers that we've got. Now you can create these forms on MailChimp. MailChimp will automatically create the form. You can just restyle it and they'll give you some code so that you can embed it or you can put links to it. And of course, you can add it to Facebook or you can use those external modules that I was talking about before. Definitely if you've got some kind of content management system that runs your website, you would probably want to use some kind of module. And there is I'm trying to find, there are a lot. There is a rather large number of modules that you can access for pretty much every content management system, and each one of them will work slightly differently, whether that's a small bar at the top of the page that just asks for an email address, whether that's a light box that pops up in the middle of the screen and grays out the rest of the screen asking for the details. You can submit them all that way. Now, before I go into the reporting, have we got any questions on the rest of that? No? Sean is sitting here looking grumpy and shaking his head. Okay. So, when we set up our campaigns, this is as simple as selecting the people that we want to receive our campaign. So that is either the list or the group on the list, the segment on the list. We set up the actual campaign, we put a subject line in, we confirm the from details. So remember I spoke before about setting up those default from details. I can actually override them here if I want to send a special blast which is slightly different. And I can also set up my social media integrations so that MailChimp automatically sends out my email communication to the database. So that will, it'll automatically tweet or it'll automatically post on Facebook. My advice to you here is you can use the Twitter one because it does make your life a bit easier if you use Twitter, if it just automatically tweets out. But if you use the Facebook auto post, it doesn't look particularly attractive when it goes out on Facebook. So I think you'd be better served manually adding it and then putting a nice picture or something with it. Then you can pick the template that you want to use. So that template can be anything from their library or the ones that you've previously saved. When you get to the design phase, design is really an exaggeration of what's actually going on here. Really, you're just pointing and clicking and adding content, and then you confirm that all your details are ready to go. You can even schedule these for a time in the future. So if you've got a community group, because the time that you send your email is actually quite important, you need to think about when people will actually read your email. I woke up this morning and I had 45 unread emails that had come in between 9:30 p.m. last night and 6 a.m. this morning, and I can tell you I did not read very many of those. Quite a lot of those just got archived. So if you are sending communications to people and you want them to actually get read, is the middle of the night the best time to send it? So if you are somebody who works on an organisation after hours, it's a volunteer, it's a passion project, then you can still do that and you can finish your MailChimp campaign at 11 or 12 o'clock at night if you'd like, but you can then schedule it to go out the next day at a more palatable time. So if you were sending to, let's say, parents of school kids, I would look at sending them either after they've done the school run in the morning, so 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, or you could send it after school when you know that parents who work during the day will hopefully be home. So that would look at 5 o'clock. The great thing here is that you can test those different times and you can try different things to see what works best. With everything digital marketing, you don't have to get it perfect straight out because we have enough data to be able to actually go, you know, that's okay. We tried that, it didn't work. Let's try it slightly differently next time and make it work again. Now, when you're doing these campaigns in MailChimp, some of this won't make sense to you now, but I recommend that you keep this list for later on. You'll really value it, I think. These are all the rookie mistakes, I guess. The top of each MailChimp template has some header text, and that header text actually gets imported into email programs as a preview of what's in the email. So some people might see the subject line and then look at the header text in their preview pane and go, okay, that's something I want to read. Don't forget to change it because it's really easy to skip over and send something out with out-of-date header text. Use a responsive template. We know now that across the world, mobile internet usage just keeps exploding. And right now, we're probably looking at about 55% of people consume the internet mainly on their mobile phone. So we want a responsive template because that means that it'll respond down nicely to a mobile phone size, but it'll also look great on a desktop. Include social sharing links so that if somebody gets your email, they can share it on Facebook, they can share it on Twitter, they can send it to their friends, they can forward it on. Where possible, try and keep semi-consistent formatting. So you want people to know that the email is from you. You don't want to send something that is so glaringly different that people will all unsubscribe because they don't know who sent them the email. Make sure you break up your content. So rather than sending a giant slab of text, make sure that you put some images in there, some links. The great thing about doing email newsletters when you've got a website is that you can actually put the big body of the newsletter item on your website, and you can put a small preview in the email. And what's going to happen is when people open that email, they will see that article in the email and decide whether they want to open it or not. So over time, you're actually going to collect data on which articles in your newsletter are most popular with your database. And you can use that to inform what you spend your time on in future. Make sure that you have a clear call to action. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make in digital marketing across websites, across social media, across absolutely everything, If you send a communication out, you're expecting people to do something for everything in that email. And what you want them to do there will vary quite a lot. It might be that you're trying to get them to register for an event, you're trying to get them to volunteer for something, you're trying to get them to donate money. In the case of Fund My Community, you're really trying to get them to vote for you. Or it may be as simple as you've sent out a newsletter and all you really want them to do is read the article in the newsletter. So make sure that you have clear calls to action, even if it's just read more. You want people to know what they need to do about that article. And then make those links very easy for people to see. MailChimp templates will have buttons that you can use that will look pretty. You can also add images that make it obvious. And the last thing is don't forget to update your Google Analytics campaign ID. Now that'll make more sense when I talk about analytics in a minute, but it's a pretty easy way for you to be able to track what people have actually been doing with your email campaign. MailChimp do most of the Google Analytics campaign ID things for you, but you just want to put something in there so that you know which campaign is which. So that might be newsletter 8th of April 2016, for example. Now with your images, make sure you always change the alt text. Now the alt text is the alternative text and it's what the email program will show if somebody can't see the images, whether they've got images turned off for their email program or if they're a blind person using a screen reader, they need to be able to access that content. So if you put that alt text in there, the screen reader can read it out to the blind person and somebody who has images turned off will be able to see what they're missing out on and they'll be able to turn images on. Make sure you only use PNG, JPEG or GIF images. Anything else may work with some people but won't work with your entire database. So don't try and use things like BMPs, bitmaps, definitely not PDFs or Photoshop documents and things like that. Make sure you add links to all the images. It's a great opportunity to actually get people to click through and find out more. Also watch the size of your images. You want to optimize your images appropriately to keep your file sizes as low as possible. And I'll talk a bit more about this in the webinar we did on Wednesday, but you can see on this slide there's 3 different images. They look virtually the same, but you can see that one's a GIF, one's a PNG and one's a JPEG and the sizes vary wildly. If you have a copy of Adobe Photoshop, this becomes really easy because you can use the export function and you can actually try different file sizes of different file formats and see what size they'll come out as and pick the one that's the smallest that doesn't have a noticeable decrease in quality. So if I was going to use, if I was going to put a photo in my newsletter, I'd probably use a JPEG. If I was going to use a logo or some kind of simple graphic icon or something, I'd use probably a PNG. If you want to know more about images, we did making images in Canva. If you're not a particularly design-orientated person, Canva is a pretty good way of being able to point and click. So check out that Wednesday webinar. All right. No questions. Shawnee's just given me the sign. So, and by the way, just make sure that you use this opportunity to ask your questions. Now, with the reporting in MailChimp, it's really clear, it's really easy for us to follow, and it's a really good way of actually being able to measure how effective our campaigns are. Now, this allows us to measure our return on investment on our email program, because you've got to remember that just like social media, if we're using MailChimp for free, then there's still a cost associated with it in terms of the time that we spend on it. So it still has to have a return on investment. So here we can measure the percentage of people who open our email, the percentage of people who click on links in that email, so that's the click-through rate, and we can view more details about that. Now this could be for reporting to ourselves for the continually improving our newsletters, or it might be reporting to management on the return on investment and the effectiveness of our email marketing. You can do all kinds of different things with this. But you'll see here a couple of things. So MailChimp gives us the open rate for this particular campaign. It also gives us the list average, which is pretty good here because we're above our list average. And it also, when you first sign up, it asks you what industry you're in, and it will give you an average for that industry. So in this case, it's 13.6%, and we got 41.5%, so that's pretty good. Now, it's kind of funny. So when we're measuring these results, it's really important not to be discouraged. So with our open rates, 10 to 15% is actually a really common open rate. If you're sending pure sales communications, it's often much less, so 2 to 3%. If you have a highly targeted and engaged list, like the example I showed you just before, you can get very high open rates. A lot of people will start out with MailChimp and they'll go, well, I sent this email, it was really important. I would have thought that everybody would read this email. Why are only 20% of people actually reading it? And sometimes that will mean that people will go back to using something like Outlook to get results. But they forget that with Outlook, you were probably actually getting the same open rate. If you've been sending bulk emails through Outlook, probably getting the same open rate, you just didn't know it. So now we've actually got the data so that we can go, okay, well, we got an open rate of 15% this time. Let's try some different things with our subject line and try and get it a bit higher next time. If we improve the quality of our list, take steps to make sure that spammers can't get through, and we can improve the relevance of our results. And don't forget those benchmarks that MailChimp provided before. Depending on what services you provide, it may be difficult to get an appropriate benchmark. I think the benchmarks that I showed you in that last example are non-profit sector, but if you are a non-profit organisation that is mainly selling something, you may find that you don't quite fit into that area. Okay, so before we move on to Google Analytics, has anyone got any more questions about MailChimp? None. All right, we'll move on. If you've got questions later on, please punch them in the box. So I don't know how many people on this webinar today are already using Google Analytics, but if you're not using it, it's really time to start. The main thing with Google Analytics is it's free. And what Google Analytics is all about is, actually I've got a cool picture for this, measuring all the things. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to measure, it allows us really at the end of the day to understand how our visitors are using our websites and understand which aspects of our digital marketing are actually effective. So we can measure a lot of things, and this is just scratching the surface. But it can give us some basic stats like how many people are actually visiting our websites, how many pages they're visiting, what they're doing on the website, where they're coming from, what language they speak, what browser they're using, whole bunch of different things. The useful things from a digital marketing perspective are things like how they get to our website, which pages they visit, things like that. So we can actually measure quite a lot. So we can get a good understanding for how our visitors use our websites, which also gives us a good understanding of which parts of our website need improvement. If your most important page on your website is your donation page, and it's the least popular page in the Google Analytics, then that tells you that you've got a problem that you need to fix. So what this actually looks like, here is the connecting up Google Analytics interface. So you can see there, this is the sessions on our website. So Google used to call sessions visits. which is a really good name for them. I'm not entirely sure why they decided to change it, but visits is how many times somebody has visited your website. Users used to be called unique visitors, which is a much better way of describing it again. So 44,500 unique visitors or users have visited our website 56,500 times. So some of those people have visited more than once in this month. In those visits, those people have accessed 187,000 page views. So they've accessed, on average, 3.31 pages per session. They've spent an average of roughly 3 minutes on our website, and 65.5% of people who come to our website come, get the information on a single page and leave. We would like that to be a lot lower, but since we offer a directory on our website, directories have the highest bounce rates on the internet, but we can actually filter this out by using this segment function here, so that we get rid of all the directory traffic and we go, okay, I think we've got a 25% bounce rate for the rest of the site and about a 70 or 80% bounce rate for our directory. Because what happens is somebody doesn't search for connecting up in Google, they might search for RSPCA, and the top listing on Google is the connecting up directory listing for RSPCA. So they'll click on that, they'll go to the page, they'll get the phone number for the RSPCA, and then they'll leave our website. This also tells us here that 70% of the people who visited our website in this month were new to our website, which is a really encouraging statistic. We can continue to attract new people to our website. Now this graph up here shows over the course of the month when people visited, and you can see that there's peaks and troughs here. Now for us, because we're dealing with organisations, not individuals, what we generally see is these troughs are weekends. And so it picks up during the week, and then it drops off for the weekend, and then it picks up again. When there are these big spikes, it's usually because we've sent out some form of email campaign. And all of our email campaigns bring people straight to our website. So it's good to be able to get that kind of reinforcement that, okay, I sent out an email campaign yesterday. The focus was to get people to come to our website and do something. And it shows on this graph that it did just that. That was a really good spike for us. Then we can look at how these people actually got to our website. So here you can see all of the different sources of traffic that we have. Now, organic search basically means free search. So it's people that just look for you on Google and click on the listing that comes up. Whereas paid search, which you can see at number 4 there, that's Google AdWords essentially. So we're not covering it today, but we covered in Wednesday. Google will actually give you $10,000 a month worth of free advertising credit. So you can make use of that to run AdWords campaigns for your organization and to increase your traffic that way. And we can see that paid search has brought in 1,400 people to our website at a bounce rate of 30%. So that's pretty good quality traffic for us. Whereas organic search, because of the directory effect I was talking before, is closer to a 72% bounce rate, which is much higher than we would like. So direct traffic is people who've actually just typed your website address into their browser and gone straight to your website. Referral traffic is people who've clicked on a link from another website that takes them to yours. Now, you can actually get a report out here to see which websites are referring people to you, and sometimes that might bring about an opportunity to contact that organization that is linking to you and create some kind of partnership, or there might be opportunities there. You can also see how many people come through email and how many people come through social media. And there's lots of breakdown reports here as well, so you've got lots of opportunities there. Now, this report here is showing me which pages are the most popular on our website. Now, no surprises here that the most popular page on our website is our homepage. So we use Drupal for our website and /no Drupal language for homepage. So we've had almost 11,000 clicks on our visits to our homepage, which isn't too bad. The really interesting thing though is that people often get all wrapped up about their homepage. But you can see here, this little percentage here says that 11,000 page views for our homepage actually only represents 5.7% of all page views for our website. It's a big website with lots of pages. So that still makes it far and away our most popular page, and it's still definitely important, but we need to make sure that we spend the time on these other pages that make up the remaining 94% of our page views. So we can see how much time people are spending on the pages, how many people are actually entering our website through that page. So you can see here that 6,500 people are entering our website via our homepage, but we've had 56,500 people come into our website. So a lot of them are not coming through the homepage. They're coming through links in emails, they're coming through direct links on social media, referral links, or they're coming through Google searches. So if somebody searches for Connecting Up, they will probably go to our homepage. But if somebody searches for, let's say, Microsoft donations, rather than going to our homepage, they would go directly to the Microsoft donation page. The other really useful stat here is the percentage of people who exit from that page. So you can see here that /account is our page for people to see once they've logged in, and that is only a 9% exit rate. So what that tells me is that most people who log in then go on to do something else on the website, and there's much more advanced analysis I can do that to understand what goes on. This page here, donations /donated software /office software, that basically lists all of the office related software that we have available through the donations program, and that's only got a 7.5% exit rate, because what happens there is people go to that page and they will leave that page to go and look at the products that are on that page. So they don't leave the website as a result of that. But what you would use that for is if you had the bottom link on that page there, number 10, is our user registration page. So we have an exit rate of 15% from that page. If you had an exit rate more than 50% from your user registration page or your donation page or something like that, you have a problem. It helps you identify where people might be missing the opportunity to make those donations. If your user registration page didn't get any traffic at all, then people are finding it too hard to sign up with you. If your user registration page has really good page views but a really high exit rate, then people find it too hard to register with you, or there's something about your registration form that turns them off. So maybe they look at your user registration page and they go, no, actually you want too much information, I don't want to give you that much personal information. There's a range of different reasons why that might be the case, but fortunately we can come up with theories and we can test them, we can measure them, and then we can understand what's going on. And you can do comparisons here as well. Now, some of the other things that we can use Google Analytics for are visit statistics, so we can understand the site visits, the page visits, the time people spend on each page and how many pages per visit. For our search engine optimization, we can understand which search queries people are typing into Google or Bing or Yahoo or whichever search engine they're using to get to our website. That helps us understand which keywords are driving our traffic and helps us create better pages for that content. It also helps us with our AdWords campaign. If we're doing that, we can target those keywords as well. It helps us identify our landing pages. So those are the pages that people are landing on when they come to our website through search engines or AdWords or whatever it might be. And if the landing page people are using is a page that we really don't want them to land on, we can, maybe it's a page that we haven't put much effort into in a while, we can go and look at that and we can identify opportunities to improve that. With our usability, we can understand the navigation flow of our users. We can understand if somebody goes to our home page, then they go to our user registration page, then they go to our confirmation page, then they go to order something, or maybe they go from our home page to our contact page, to our page that confirms that they've sent us an email. We can understand what they're doing and we can make improvements there if they're not going to the places that are important to us. We can see which are our most popular pages, and again this helps us identify pages that aren't getting the activity that we need them to. And also the conversions. So a conversion is somebody comes to your website and we want them to convert into an email subscriber. So we can actually measure the percentage of people who come to our website who turn into an email subscriber or turn into a member or make a donation or place an order. We can do lots of other things, but one other thing I want to mention is you can actually measure quite a lot about your users, which is really useful if you're doing research or surveys. Now we can actually pull out demographic data, so we can understand the average ages of people who are visiting our website, we can understand the genders, we can understand where they're from, we can understand what language they speak. One of the organisations that came last night was an organisation that was looking to teach Hindi, and so if we have a lot of people coming to our website that actually speak Hindi but it's only available in English, that's potentially a gap that we need to address. We can also analyse which devices people are using. Are they all using their mobile phone? If you've got 80% of people using their mobile phone to access your website, and some of you that may sound ridiculous, but definitely we're seeing on some websites between 60 and 80% mobile now. Depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're getting 80% mobile visits and your website isn't mobile friendly, you have a problem and you need to address it. And if you have a feature on your website that doesn't work on Google Chrome, and Google Chrome is shown in Google Analytics that it's the most popular web browser people use to access your website, then you have a problem. All right, any questions so far? No, again, the Sean shakes his head. All right, so how do we actually use Google Analytics day to day? Like, it's all well and good that we can measure everything, but we don't need to analyze analytics every day to that extent. We just don't have the time and resources to do that. In a big company, you know, in an Amazon or that kind of organization, you know, there are multiple people whose job it is to analyze this data and come up with things that they can do to improve the user flow and to get more conversions. Because for Amazon, conversions are money, but for most of us, we don't have that luxury. So what we would do with Google Analytics day to day is we just have it installed on our website, ticking away, measuring data that we can act on later on. We can use it to measure which social media posts are the most effective. We can use it to measure which of our email campaigns are most effective. We can use it to measure our Google AdWords campaigns. We can also use it to analyze different user behavior. So which campaign do we get the most new visitors from? Do the new visitors register? Which content is the most popular? And also just looking for problem spots. So if our user registration page all of a sudden went from being one of our top 10 most popular pages to one of our bottom 10 pages, we would definitely want to get on that as soon as possible. And so that doesn't mean we're pouring all over it daily, but we would be looking at it probably once a week, looking at these headline items. Now, when I talk about campaign tracking, we have things like this amazing URL here. Basically, everything after the question mark is specific to Google Analytics. So you can see the first part of that is www.connectingup connectingup.org/conference. So that's our conference homepage. The conference is in Melbourne in May, by the way, so you can actually go to that website and have a look for more information if you'd like. But if we break this big URL down, we can measure where we get this particular lead from. So if somebody goes to this website with the whole URL, Google Analytics will go, well, this UTM source bit, it says CU15 newsletter. So that tells me that this lead came from a CU15 newsletter. That's pretty simple. The next part is the medium. So which channel the lead came from. So did it come from an email? Did it come from CPC, which is cost per click, your AdWords? Did it come from some form of banner? Did it come from a Facebook post even? So you can actually decide yourself what the contents of these are. So I made that source up myself, the CU15 newsletter. Medium, I always use the term email for email campaigns. It's the same term MailChimp used, so it makes it a bit easier for me to measure all email. And then we've got this UTM campaign. So this particular campaign was about our keynote. So we sent an email, a newsletter out to our database, which was a newsletter for our conference, which was sent via email, and it was about our keynote speakers. Now you might actually call that campaign Facebook donations and put the actual date in so that you can track that. You can call it whatever you want, as long as you call it something that you can actually go back and refer to later on. Now, the only problem with that is that that URL looks horrible. No one is going to be able to remember that URL. So what we do is we can create easy to remember links that include the tracking information. So if we use Bitly or Hootsuite, whichever one you want to use, both have free options. So I can make that URL go to bit.ly/CU15 conference. I hide all that difficult to remember Google Analytics stuff. Now those URLs can go on a flyer. So if we wanted our source to be flyer and we wanted to hand flyers out in letterboxes, we could actually measure that by using these kind of links. So we can now use this tool to be able to track the effectiveness of pretty much any piece of marketing that we send out. We also have the option for custom domains. So I might want to have cu.cu/CU15 conference, something nice and short, but you have to pay for that and some of the offerings are a bit expensive. So now that we have our tracking URLs, we have an easy way of actually being able to display them in a way that people can actually remember and read. So now we actually look at the campaigns. So what you can see here is those top 3 campaigns that are all written in plain English. I can see exactly what they are. Those imported from Google AdWords. So I can see that my Google AdWords campaign regarding connecting up branding has brought 558 new visits to our website. So it's 21% of the total. These ones over here with the unique bit of code at the beginning, those are MailChimp auto created campaigns. So you can see here that this newsletter, April 2015, got us really good traffic. But the 13th of May 2015, not quite so good. So what I would do there is I would have a look at the MailChimp stats and I would go, okay, did April 29th have a much higher open rate than 13th of May? Well, yes, it did. Okay, so what about the April 29 newsletter was so good? Why did people like it so much? And I can go back and I can adopt those things for our next newsletter. Because I can see here that on the April the 29th newsletter, these people are visiting 5.6 pages per visit. And across the website, the average is 3.3. So those people were very interested in whatever was in that newsletter. Now, the other thing that I can do here is I can then limit this down to a source and a medium. So the source in this case, we've got Google over here, and organic, so that's organic search engine traffic, free search engine traffic. Direct is people typing a URL straight in. Bing/organic, that's free Bing traffic. Google/CPC, again, that is the cost per click advertising I was talking about before, but then we get into these kind of things. So connecting up mailing list/email, that is the connecting up mailing list on MailChimp, and that was sent via email. Yahoo Organic, sacommunity.org/referral. So sacommunity.org, if you're not aware, is a directory of community service organisations that we run, and we can see there that 297 people have been referred to our website from SA Community. So this gives me a lot of information about which channels are working for us. So if you're really interested in Google Analytics, and honestly you should be, it's free and it's a really good way of being able to measure lots of different things that you can use at any point in time. I've pulled Google Analytics data out before to show funders the impact of our programs, to pull out demographics data to understand what the gaps are. We've done a lot of different things with it, very useful data to have. It's free to sign up at analytics.google.com. You can set up an analytics property and then you'll get a tracking ID. Google try and make it very easy for you to follow this through because they want you to use it. Now, if you've got a website that doesn't have some kind of content management system, you have to put something that looks like this on every page you want to track immediately before the closing head tag. If that looks too complicated, what we can actually do is we can install modules. Much easier. So if you're using WordPress, there's a Google Analytics by Yoast plugin, which is very good. There is a Drupal plugin called Google Analytics, and what they'll do is they'll automatically add the code to every page on your website, and you just add that Google Analytics ID that you saw back here, that UA number. It'll just ask for that and it'll add it to every page on your website so you don't have to. Now, the other thing I would recommend is that you connect your analytics account and your website with Google Search Console, which used to be called Webmaster Tools and still is in some places on the Google website, because it connects with Google Analytics to get deeper data about search queries, about crawl errors. So if Google is having trouble accessing a part of your website, then your visitors probably are as well. And also malware errors. If you've ever seen, you've gone to a website and it says, this website has viruses on it, please don't proceed. That's what a malware error is. And if you're unfortunate enough to get one of those to pop up, then Google Search Console can help you to fix that. Again, that's a free tool and you can sign up by going to google.com/webmasters, and there's a lot of other resources on that page that will help you. Now, the other thing that I want to connect you with right now is some previous webinars that we've done on similar topics that may assist you if you want more information about any aspect. So these are free and online. There's a Website Essentials and Analytics course. There's one specifically on search engine optimization if you're after something a little bit more advanced. There's an introduction to social media, and there's also an increasing your conversion rate using Google Analytics and Google Insights. And that's quite a bit more advanced, but if you're interested, that's freely available on YouTube. And finally, if you need more help, then we actually offer a premium membership program, which includes a discount on our conference, our webinars and workshops, things like that. But the headline here is that you get 1 hour of free mentoring. So the membership program is $150 a year, and you can sign up at our website, and we would be able to sit down with you for an hour and help you plan out a digital marketing campaign for Fund My Community, or just help you get all of your properties up to speed and up to date for the program. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. Have we got any questions, Sean? He's shaking his head and looking very sad. Again, this is your opportunity to ask as many questions as you possibly can. So if you've got any questions about anything we covered today or anything that we covered on Wednesday that we mentioned at the beginning, please let us know, make use of the opportunity, and we will stay on here until all the questions are answered. And if there aren't any questions, it will make Sean sad because he has nothing to do. No questions. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, we might end the webinar. If you do have any more questions that you think of later, feel free to contact us and we will be able to help you then.
Great. Thank you, Ryan, very much for presenting today, and thank you everyone for joining. As mentioned earlier, a link to the recording of the webinar and a downloadable version of the slides will be sent to you all in the coming days, so please keep a lookout in your inbox. And as Ryan mentioned, if you do have any questions on today's webinar, please feel free to send them through, and you can send them to events@connectingup.org. Lastly, don't forget we have our annual Connecting Up conference coming up in Melbourne from 18th to 20th of May. So for more information and to register, please visit connectingup.org/conference. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.